My son was in first grade. He had a project, relatively straightforward. It just write on a piece of paper what you would like to do when you grow up. When I grow up, I want to be a pastor, he wrote. I asked him why. He said, "You work one day a week." That's great. Now we're at Union and Betsy is here. You only have to talk to kids once every other week. It's amazing. What a job. What a job. One of the questions I get a lot as a preacher is, how long does it take to prepare a sermon? Folks actually ask that much more than they ask, what do you do in order to prepare for a sermon? So I'm going to let you in on a little bit of some secrets from the trade here. So this Sunday is Sky Sunday liturgically. It's the fourth day. Firth read the fourth day in Genesis 1. We have a number of other things going on as well. But the fourth day in Scripture is celebration of the dome. It's a celebration of the creation of the sun and the moon and the stars. And I'm reading the books that I think I ought to read. I'm preparing in the ways that I think I ought to prepare, and I've got some of the meat and potatoes of the sermon together, but I'm wondering what other components might fit, and I felt really stuck this week. How do you celebrate the stars and the moon, the sky? How do you celebrate the seasons, the years? Where do you begin? And so as I felt stuck, I wanted to pull back, as I often do, and try and break this into a piece of the pie that I can comprehend, that I can chew on, and maybe help you chew on for a little while. And that really didn't get me anywhere. And so I started thinking about, okay, are there stories that seem to fit with your theme? No, not really. Not at all, actually. Are there songs? And I'm thinking, what songs would fit here? And so I'm thinking, moon, when the moon hits your eye, like a big pizza pie. All right, that's Amore. Okay, that's something. That's not really anything good, but it's something, I think. And then Ann Eyre, our administrator, came into the office and said, "Dave, what's your sermon title this week?" And I said, "That's Amore." I guess that's about as good as I've got right now. So I thought, well, I'll look this song up, because it preceded my life a little bit, by 25 years. 1953, Dean Martin. When the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's Amore. When the world seems to shine like you've had too much wine, that's Amore. Bells will ring ting-a-ling-a-ling, ting-a-ling-a-ling. You'll sing Vita Bella. Hearts will play tippy-tippy-tay like a gay tarantella. What were you listening to in the 1950s? And then it goes on. When the stars make you drool like a pasta fazool. What is that? So I went to the place I knew would give me all the answers, Wikipedia. And so it says in Wikipedia that the lyrics affectionately ridicule the Italian-American ethnic stereotype with eyes like a big pizza pie. That's Amore. Dean Martin did not attempt to deliver the lyrics in an authentic Italian accent, but used the accent of an American trying to mimic Italian pronunciation. Now, what does that mean in 2015? Do I really want to talk about a song that seems to have some sort of ethnic stereotype subtext that I don't fully understand as it relates to 1953? Is this a song that actually does or could offend in 2015? And I thought, oh my gosh. Is this 1953's version of Taylor Swift's Wildest Dreams absent an internet? And I started to sweat. Oh my gosh, I can't talk about That's Amore. This is going to lead me down all sorts of crazy paths. It's going to leave a toxic fog in the service that we can't make go away. So this is a secret in the craft of learning how to prepare a sermon. Well, some of you were sweating out details of multi-million-dollar transactions or teaching children to read. I was going over That's Amore. My grandfather used to say to us kids when we were growing up, never back yourself down a cul-de-sac. And when you do, get out. Find another point of entry. Genesis 1, as we asserted last week. It is liturgy. It is poetry. It is affirmation. It is confession. It is scripture. It is a way of describing how God speaks. It's a way of talking about what God might say or even does say when God speaks. It is good. It is a text that is subversive. It makes radical counterclaims against other cultures, other faith systems that the Israelites encountered all those years ago. It is many, many things, Genesis 1, and it is also, of course, a love story. That's Amore. Hit your head against the wall. How can I speak about this? How can I articulate my faith in relationship to Genesis 1? How can I stop and pray? How can I be what I'm called to be today while describing the sun and the moon and the stars and the seasons and the years? And then I realize what is clearly obvious to many of you this morning, that in preparing this sermon and in reflecting upon this text, my vision had hit a ceiling that extended straight out from my forehead. It never was raised past that point. While I was contemplating the sun and the moon and the stars and the seasons and the years, my horizon was my life, my family, my computer screen, my church, my work, my faith, and the way we live our lives. You would think that it takes an enormous amount of effort to look up. You would think the way in which we live our lives that it would take an enormous amount of effort to simply look up. There are lots of ways to articulate this looking up. Many different philosophies, many different faith systems, of course, articulate what that action is, what happens to the human being when he or she does it. Many faith systems talk about how we're trying to connect our stories together, perhaps even to a big story. The Tao Te Ching says in the 5th chapter that the space between heaven and earth is like a bellows. It's empty yet inexhaustible. The more it's used, the more it produces. The more you talk of it, the less you comprehend. Hold on to the center, for humanity was made to sit quietly and find the truth within. It's beautiful. My issue as a 21st century American here in Montclair, New Jersey, is that when I am asked to sit quietly and find the truth within, it still is my faith, my story, my church, my life, my family, my everything. The Pope is coming this week. The Pope is coming this week. And from the news stories I have read, the primary purpose of the Pope coming is to turn Route 3 and Route 46 into parking lots. Now, I do like many things that Francis has said. Francis has also put some folks on edge. I was not surprised to find that a number of evangelical Christians and evangelical American Christians are a little upset with Francis. But I was really surprised when I read about the firestorm that happened in June 2014 when Pope Francis had a weekly general audience. And he said that people of faith are not made in a laboratory free of influences. They are made in churches. Ooh. Pope Francis described as dangerous the temptation to believe that one can have a personal, direct, immediate relationship with Jesus Christ. He said, sometimes it can be really tiring. It can happen that a brother or sister creates problems for us or scandalizes us, but the Lord entrusted God's message of salvation to human beings, to us, to witnesses. It is through our brothers and sisters, with their gifts and their limits, that God comes to us and makes God's self known. That's what belonging to the church means. Remember, being Christian means belonging to the church. If your first name is Christian, your last name should be member. That's frightening stuff for some folks. One should not be focused on an individual relationship with Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and that any relationship that one may have with God is fostered and cultivated within the confines of a community. I think what Pope Francis was trying to say in all of that was that this thing that we do when we look up, that we should not try to do this alone. In fact, we can't really do it alone. A professor of mine in seminary used to say that there was nothing more dangerous than an individual Christian. There was nothing more dangerous than an individual Christian. He said that because he meant that individual Christians have come up with all sorts of ideas and all sorts of rationales for poor behavior. Individual Christians have acted poorly, and the corporate body has acted poorly at times and in different places. And Christians have done all sorts of things that are violent and run counter to the message that Jesus brings to us. But individual Christians, those who are free agents, those who have free reign to come up with whatever they want, Francis seems to suggest, err only in that they fail to recognize that we need each other. We need each other when we look up, so that if we see the moon and we say it's made out of mozzarella, we have someone else to say, maybe it isn't. We need each other so that when we look at walls and we say, no, that wall over there, it's definitely pink, that someone else can say, well, maybe it isn't. We need each other because when we speak about our sacraments, our baptism and communion and what those mean and how life is lived in interpretation of those sacraments, for someone else to say, guess what? It's not about you and your story. It's not about you and your faith alone. It's not about your history. It's not about your job. It's not about your church all of the time. Because human beings are so incredibly good at doing the my thing. My money, my love, my grades, my family, my church, my faith. Walter Brueggemann wrote about this in a short poem called On Generosity. He said, on our own we conclude there's not enough to go around. We are going to run short of money, of love, of grades, of publications, of sex, of beer, of members, of years of life. We should seize the day, seize our goods, seize our neighbor's goods, because there's not enough to go around. And in the midst of those deficits, God comes. God comes giving bread in the wilderness. You come giving children at the 11th hour. You come giving homes to exiles. You come giving futures to the shut down. You come giving Easter joy to the dead. You come fleshed. Our ultimate vocation is so easily co-opted and domesticated by the people who are living those vocations out, by us. Our ultimate vocation at times can just become, we are here to be happy. We are here to only live our lives so that we can take the best vacations possible. We are here to live our lives so that Sabbath is only that we get to do what we want to do, rather than it being a mechanism for rest in order for us to do that which we are called to do. We treat work sometimes as if it is only a means to an end, rather than an exploration of how we can combine our ultimate vocation to love God, to love neighbor, to love ourselves, to love creation, with the daily expressions of those vocations in offices and coffee shops and warehouses and riding trains. Simply put, too infrequently, we don't look up. I'll finish with this little story. I was in the grocery store a few years ago. I was buying a couple of little things. And there was a lady in front of me, and I got the sense that she was in a really bad mood. I just got that vibe. The cashier seemed very harried and hurried and was not seemingly having a particularly good day either. The lady in front of me purchased several things, including grapes. Cashier checked her out, put the grapes down at the end, and the lady went to pick up the grapes. And instead of grabbing the bag by the top of the bag, she grabbed it by the side of the bag. And she grabbed the bag very suddenly, and she pulled on it, and grapes flew out across the floor. And the cashier, who was harried and hurried already, just stared at the customer. Clenched teeth. What now? The customer stared back at the cashier. A couple of seconds went by, and she said, I think I'm just going to go and get some new ones, and then I'll be on my way. And she walked over the grapes that were on the floor, went and got some new grapes, and walked out of the store. A young man in the next aisle who was bagging groceries came over, and he began to pick up the grapes. And I'm looking at the cashier, and she looks at me, meets my eye. And I know she's having a terrible day. That wasn't the first time something like that had happened that day. That in all probability, the night before, her cousin or mother or daughter had had words with her, or she needed to get somewhere after her shift and she needed to be there in a hurry, or something was going on in addition to these customers. And I thought, Dave Shaw is going to save the day. I'm going to buy this lady a cup of coffee. Now, there was a Starbucks in the store, so I walked down about 100 yards, and I went and bought a cup of coffee, and I came back to her aisle, and there were a few customers in the aisle, and I waited about 4 or 5 minutes, and then I said, it looked like you were having a bit of a rough day. Here's a cup of coffee. And she looked at me and said, I don't drink coffee. Okay. Is there something else you might like? I drink hot chocolate. Okay, all right. Back to Starbucks. I'm now like $17 in the hole, right? Hot chocolate. I bring it back to the aisle. Reach out to give it to the woman, and I dropped it. Lands on the floor with a thud. Hot chocolate goes all over the place. I stop. I look down. I look up at her. She's staring at me. And we both just started to laugh. How absurd. How absurd that moment was for us. How absurd that we could look at each other in that moment and connect. How absurd. How absurd that I couldn't find laughter on my own. How absurd that I thought that I was going to save the day all by myself. How absurd that I thought that just being me, I could raise her out of her funk for that day. How absurd. How absurd that together we were able to get past whatever that moment was. How absurd that suddenly I went out of the grocery store and looked up. And looked up. In my own way, I said, that's Amore. Peace be with you.